visited the state institutions for the mentally retarded, and I think particularly at Willowbrook that we have a situation that borders on a snake pit, and that the children live in filth. But many of our fellow citizens are suffering tremendously because lack of attention, lack of imagination, lack of adequate manpower. There's very little future for the children or for those who are in these institutions.
I was a medical doctor at Willowbrook. I was brought to Willowbrook for the first time on my pediatric rotation during my internship. The smell was the first thing that overwhelmed you when you walked in. An incomparable smell, a combination of human excrement and sweat and smell that once you identify it, you can never miss it again. And then the noise. If you're an auditory person, it strikes you as well because there's a background noise of moaning and yelling and very surreal noises being made by people with no aim in their life. It quickly dawns on you that this is an operation which is for the purpose of housing people without a plan for their life, just as the cliche goes, a warehouse for human beings. It was very overt. You didn't have to think much to figure that part out. They were just sitting there. Just nothing to do all day, just sitting there and rocking. There was a big entrance at Willowbrook where the cars could come, and they had security people checking, and they were not going to let us on the grounds. But it's a huge place, many acres, and so we simply parked on the periphery, and there was this stone fence, and we vaulted the fence, and we ran the 200 yards to the nearest building and easily got in.
Thirty years.
30 years.
30 years.
One voice.
One voice.
One voice. One voice.
What is a P&A? To answer that question, you must remember that until the mid-1970s, no federally funded entity existed to protect the legal rights of persons with disabilities. The atrocities at Willowbrook helped motivate the creation and passage of a federal law creating these Protection and Advocacy, or P&A, agencies.
The horrific pictures that document the conditions in Willowbrook State Hospital forced the Congress to take action.
The Federal Developmental Disabilities Assistance and Bill of Rights Acts, passed in 1975, created a network of independent watchdog entities that could preserve, protect, and defend the legal rights of persons with disabilities.
Congress created the Protection and Advocacy System in the mid-70s to address the abuse and neglect that people with developmental disabilities were experiencing throughout the country in those large congregate facilities.
Following passage of the Federal Developmental Disabilities Assistance and Bill of Rights Act in 1975, the state of Kansas received $20,000 to come up with a plan for forming a local protection and advocacy entity. A plan was written, approved by Governor Robert F. Bennett, and submitted for federal approval. The Kansas Advocacy and Protective Services for the Developmentally Disabled was born.
Former Governor, God rest his soul, Bennett, is the one who designated this agency as protection advocacy. system for Kansas and made it separate from state government. And that was an incredible move, and it's still benefiting people with disabilities today.
As new services were added, the name would later be shortened to Kansas Advocacy and Protective Services, or KAPS. Joan Strickler was chosen to be the agency's first executive director, and office space was rented in Manhattan, Kansas. The year was 1977.
I first became acquainted with protection and advocacy systems when I worked at the State Department of Education. When we would have a child whose rights were clearly being interfered with, and it really needed, beyond just an advocate, it needed an attorney, someone who knew the law very well and could talk to the schools about the law and what they needed to do, we would refer them to Kansas Protection and Advocacy Services so that the child and the parent would get some representation of a legal basis without having to go out and spend a lot of money.
Congress has, over the last 25 years, added additional programs to our system to ensure that all people with disabilities would receive the same types of protections and legally based advocacy that only the protection and advocacy system can provide.
Thanks to the subpoena power that's granted to us and our independence, we are able to get into situations and investigate the problems that our clients present to us and aggressively advocate on behalf of our clients, no matter who it is that they might be dealing with.
P&As, like the Disability Rights Center of Kansas, are multidisciplinary organizations that provide a wide array of services, including legal assistance and advocacy representation, public policy advocacy, and educating the public, as well as outreach and training for persons with disabilities. DRC serves Kansans with all types of disabilities. Starting in early 2004, DRC conducted a comprehensive agency-wide reorganization. The reorganization has resulted in better outcomes from these core services.
I would hope that we've made a difference in the lives of people with disabilities.
DRC is mainly funded with federal grants. However, as a 501c3 nonprofit, DRC can also accept charitable donations and gifts, which are tax deductible. Due to its limited funding, for about every 10 Kansans who request some type of service from the DRC, it can only fund legal representation for one. However, DRC does provide a service to every person with a disability who requests services, even if it cannot provide legal representation. These include information and referral, self-advocacy support, and advocacy representation.
It is so important to advocate and protect people who are not able to advocate and protect themselves.
Disability Rights Center knows, they understand clearly, they're very knowledgeable about the law, what the disability community needs, the Americans with Disabilities Act. So you can just get feedback so much easier with the DRC people because they know what they're doing.
They do that at no cost to the individual with disability because many times those people just could not afford to hire an attorney and otherwise would just be walked all over.
Disability Rights Centers obviously have that focus, that training, that experience, that sensitivity, that connection both with the population and with resources and services that are available to them.
Otherwise there would be no access to the legal system except for private lawyers. Look in the phone book, watch TV, and so on.
I just want to thank Disability Rights Center for all their wonderful work and excellent work, and hope that they continue for other people. We really do need you.